Good evening and welcome to Undaunted, bringing into the news untold stories. I'm Star Smart. Let's begin. It is no news that La Republic du Cameroon has been killing, raping, and torturing southern Cameroonians. The Bali Nyonga local government area vehemently condemns and abhors the war crimes committed by La Republic du Cameroon's military in Bali Nyonga within the past months and years. At different levels, many horrific complaints have been received, especially from civilians within Bali Nyonga, about the ongoing rape, killings, break-ins into homes, and the arrest of women and young girls, some even as young as 14 years old, by the Cameroonian military. These tragedies are not news anymore. But the question is, what are these helpless and innocent women to do? Well, we'll see what the Comrade Sylvester Amba, Secretary of State for Special Operations, has to say about these and many more, as we hope to have him on Undaunted tonight. To get us into the full briefings of tonight's Undaunted, we'll have the prime headlines now.
Well, these are the prime headlines for today. Bali Nyonga local government area records rape and torture of youths by the Cameroonian La Republic du Cameroon military. Remains of killed colonial agents exhumed. The question is why? Now, having lost so many of her soldiers in the Ambazonian War of Independence, La Republic du Cameroon Muslims begin week of prayers for peace. And down in Africa, more in-depth look at the most recent conflict in sub-Saharan Africa. Also, Valverde could still face a 12-game ban for punching Villarreal's Alex Bina. Now that's for sports. Let's get the news in detail.
The media greatly influences society. They inform people about what is happening. It permeates people's lives by creating their own criteria and opinions. In this way, the media moves the masses, creating different social movements.
For over 60 years, the people of Ambazonia were deprived of such privileges. The privilege to enhance their own criteria and opinion. They have suffered cultural genocide for 6 long decades, but not in this age and not with Undaunted ABC Amba News on board.
You must understand that wars are fought and won in the media. The speed of the revolution on Ambazonia's quest for freedom cannot be explained without highlighting the diligent use of the media.
Franco-Cameroon colonizers, among other strategic moves, weaponized the media against Ambazonia for so long, and they continue to do so even today. The question would be, how much do the oppressed people of Ambazonia need to counter the media rage?
Indeed, how much more is required to stop the genocide? The carnage in Ambazonia didn't start today. In 1961, 1972, 1984, 1992, Ambazonians were slaughtered in huge numbers and help was not forthcoming. Why? Because the oppressor was the piper in the media.
The good news is we have what it takes to dictate the pace.
Right now, ABC Amba TV is taking advantage of the wonders of multimedia aggressively
to inform the misinformed and disinformed with Undaunted and other revolutionary programs bringing it to the news untold stories.
Most importantly, to win the media war by taking ABC Amba TV into every multimedia platform.
In a word, where the importance of storytelling can never be overemphasized, Amazonians has to tell her own story, not the other way around.
And like we say it always, Amazonia must narrate her story accurately. We can do this together, you know, right? You are just a click away. Visit our website at www.abcambertv.com, and the steps are quite simple.
With just a click on the website, you can become a club member with so many benefits.
You can also make a one-time donation, advertise and showcase your goods and services at the marketplace on the website.
That was easy, right? You're welcome on board.
And thank you for opting for the winning team.
Right, up top, Colonial Republic de Cameroon military commander admits soldiers can't end the war in Amberland. Now, the breaking news that got to Undaunted ABC Amber TV newsroom says the commander of the La Republic de Cameroon's 5th Gendarmerie region in Bamenda local government area, Brigadier General Osini Jibo, has said civilians and soldiers should stop thinking that it is the military that can stop the ongoing Ambazonian War of Independence. The Colonial Republic of Cameroon's Major General Jibo was speaking recently during the inauguration of a newly renovated mosque at the Colonial Republic of Cameroon Gendarmerie Command Post in Bamenda, built to cater for the spiritual needs of the genocidal Republic of Cameroon soldiers. General Osini threw in at the towel, admitting the supremacy of the brave ARFs. That, in his message, it says, "My message to every civilian and soldier is that they should stop thinking that it is our forces that will stop the crisis." What a wonderful revelation. Anyways, this is where we will begin the full briefings of Undaunted tonight. How are you doing, sir?
Very well, Onyi. Good evening, Ambazonians. The Colonial La Republic of Cameroon's Major General Husseini Jibo, accepting that his Colonial La Republic of Cameroon forces are helpless, has handed the Ambazonian Liberation War to God, saying everyone should pray and ask God, because the Bible says in Matthew 7:7, he says that ask, it shall be given, knock, and the doors will be open. It is same in the Holy Quran. He says, adding that soldiers are human beings created by God and their lives are also precious. As to why the mosque was renovated, he said he could not just watch while God's house continues to dilapidate. The Colonial La Republic of Cameroon's Major General Jibo's remark came at a time when many, especially CPDM militias and the Colonial La Republic of Cameroon's government supporters and members of Yaoundé's government still believe in the military option to stop the war of over 6 years now.
Well, the Southern Cameroon's conflict has deep roots. Its immediate history traces to 2016 when the Yaoundé colonial repressive government cracked down on southern Cameroon's protesters who were demanding protections for the educational and judicial systems being eroded in the mix-up union with La République du Cameroon. But tensions between the southern Cameroons and the majority Francophone central government goes back to decades. While today's Cameroon is supposedly an amalgamation of territories. Now, what could that mean? The geopolitics setup of Cameroon is set up as a fraud because the process and protocols that were employed to bring the two countries together were in contravention of the UN Charter. Those who are polite, you call it an experimental relationship, which definitely has failed. And evidence of this experiment is a failure in the war between the Southern Cameroons and La République du Cameroon on very, very basic issues, issues relating to principles, even on identity on a people. In fact, it's been discovered that La Republic du Cameroon from the onset didn't have goodwill to be in a good relationship with the Southern Cameroons. The two trusteeship territories have equal status. The question is, what happened to that equal status?
It should be noted that everything were controlled by the French and British during the colonial era. In the few years right after the Southern Cameroon's independence in 1961, a federal structure helped preserve a sense of autonomy in the country, but that arrangement did not last. Instead, the colonial Yaoundé central government reconfigured the state to consolidate power in Yaoundé. 6 years of conflict have killed over 40,000 Southern Cameroonians and many more, like 1.6 million Ambazonians displaced as refugees into neighboring countries. Armed Ambazonian freedom fighters continue to ambush the occupier La République du Cameroon security forces and harass aid workers in their fight to free themselves from the annexationist majority French Cameroon.
While efforts to facilitate a peace settlement between the warring parties have ebbed and flowed without gaining significant traction. Most recently, a Canadian-led effort appeared to hit a hurdle when the colonial Yaoundé government issued a statement rejecting the idea of foreign facilitation to arrange talks with the southern Cameroons. Since then, the parties have been publicly mum about the status of any talks. Prior to the Canadian fiasco or charade, the same Yaoundé junta had backed out of their internationally recognized and accepted Swiss-led mediation process to end the conflict.
Well, on the contrary, the Yaoundé mafia set up, afraid of facing the bull by the horns, that is, the people's interim government led by the God-fearing leader Sacco, goes around with a gang of Amazonian scammers who were more or less business contractors ready to auction 8 million Amazonians, people would say like Judas Iscariot.
Well, moving on, it's been brought to the knowledge of ABC Amber TV News that the Muslim community in Colonial La Republic de Cameroon is starting a week of prayers for peace against terrorism, crime, and a deadly Amazonian armed conflict. While the prayers to mark the ending of the holy month of Ramadan comes after the military sets calls of people, including the Colonial La Republic de Cameroon military, were killed this month following clashes with the La Republic du Cameroon military and Ambazonian freedom fighters. Authorities says there has been a deadly crime wave in the colonial La Republic du Cameroon capital Yaoundé.
Well, Undaunted gathered that hundreds of civilians gathered Monday in Nkomesang, a neighborhood in Yaoundé, to pray for peace in this failed state. The civilians said they are praying for the welfare of the country, troubled by terrorism, crime, and the ongoing Southern Cameroon's Amazonia War of Independence in Ambaland. Cloud Abe, a sociology lecturer at the Catholic University of Central Africa in Yaoundé, says he is a Christian but has joined Muslims in prayer because human life, which was sacred and precious in La République du Cameroon, as it was in other African traditional societies, is today trivialized up to a point where some people kill at will and for fun.
Well, he says frustration, joblessness, religious intolerance, and poverty have led to increasing violence and barbarism all over La Republic du Cameroon. The Colonial La Republique de Cameroon's military reports that at least 35 Colonial La Republique de Cameroon soldiers have died in 3 weeks of fighting between the La Republique de Cameroon government troops and the Amazonian Restoration Forces, the ARFs, while 15 civilians were killed in an increasing crime wave in Yaoundé.
Well, in one scene reported by local media, a family of six was found dead with machete wounds in the town of Nanga Eboko near Yaoundé, and the killer equally committed suicide in a police cell in Yaoundé. Other mutilated corpses were found on street corners by civilians. Police say they are investigating what they call a spike in heinous crimes. Sitan Mohamedou Kongiu, a Muslim youth leader at Nkolmeseng, says the prayers for peace will be said in all mosques in La Republic of Cameroon until the end of Ramadan.
Well, just in case you do not know, Islam originates from the word peace, and we cannot practice Islam in an environment that is not peaceful. That's what he said. He goes on to say, La Republic is facing so many challenges as far as peace is concerned, especially when we consider the activities of the Boko Haram, the rebels, and the Central African Republic border, and we consider the Amazonian Restoration Forces in the southern Cameroon's Amazonia. It is very important for all Muslims in La Republic of Cameroon to intensify prayers for peace in this country.
Well, the Council of Imams and Muslim dignitaries of La Republic of Cameroon organized the prayer for peace. As its coordinator, Musa Umaro, says La Republic of Cameroon will develop if its children embrace peace and stop the ongoing conflict. Undaunted notes here in passing that La Republic of Cameroon has been fighting within the past 10 years to secure its northern border with Nigeria and Chad from Boko Haram. Besides this, the colonial La Republic of Cameroon troops are also engaged in a challenging war with the Amazonian freedom fighters in Ambaland. And the military reports that rebels from the Central African Republic regularly cross La Republic of Cameroon's eastern border, kill civilians, seize their cattle, and abduct villagers for ransom.
Well, the Colonial La Republic de Cameroon slave, who doubles as the Colonial Territorial Administration Minister, Paul Atanga Nji, says La Republic de Cameroon's genocidal government will welcome any initiative that can bring peace to troubled regions of the Central African states. In his words, he says, I told the religious leaders, especially the Imam, that living together is something which is very important for President Paul Biya. He said, he goes on to say, I urge all the communities to work for the common good in a peaceful environment where Christians and other denominations work and live together without problems. Muslims in La Republic of Cameroon say the prayers will end with the Eid al-Fitr, a religious holiday celebrated by the Muslims to mark the end of the month-long dawn to sunset fasting of Ramadan. All right, before we continue with the reports this evening, remember we told you that we have a guest in our studio this evening. We have the Secretary of State for Special Operations and Self-Defense, SOS Sylvester Zama, in the studio. And we have a lot to talk about this evening. All right, SOS Zama, we can see you. We just want to be sure and certain that you can hear us loud and clear.
Yes, I do.
All right. Would want you to say a word so that we can have that confirmation doubled.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me for this show today. Thanks for making all the efforts to reach our people in Amazonia who are facing the enemy. We want to really thank you for all the efforts you've been putting to inform our people of the realities on the ground and the international communities as to what our citizens are going through on a daily basis. Thank you very much.
All right, you're very welcome. Before we begin with the two reports that we've had for today, let's start with the successes recorded on Saturday's draft. Now, it was the federal government's draft that was hosted by the Atlantic Zone. And we know that before now there are some challenges that were encountered. But as the Secretary of State for Special Operations and Self-Defense, um, did the draft on Saturday, did it meet your earnest expectations?
We will accept anything we can get towards this war. Um, Nobody can complain about too much money for a war. We are fighting a pernicious enemy that has all the resources it can get. It exploits our resources and sell them and buy arms to kill our people. So whenever we have genuine people of Amazonia contributing to protect their family members back home, I think it's a worthwhile effort to be applauded. The Atlantic region did a very good job on galvanizing our people and turning them out to do their contributions towards this effort. A lot of times we are thinking about it's a war. Yes, people are being killed. Yes, we are fighting this enemy because this enemy is stomping on our head, is stomping on our necks. We have to defend ourselves, and it's a human right. It's internationally recognized right to defend ourselves. And I hope all the contributors to this effort don't feel guilty about it, because all the wars that have been fought around the world have been fought. It needs money. It needs money to do that, and I really thank all those Ambazonians who are doing all their own best effort to protect their families back home.
All right. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. All right. Before we get to other questions that we have for you, we've given a report right now that the Muslim community is beginning to accept that the Ambazonian Restoration Forces are doing a great job. I mean, you can hear the Muslim community already saying it loud and clear that this war will not be won by La Republic du Cameroon military. What do you have to say about this? What would you rather suggest that they do, since they know that the Ambazonian Restoration Forces are equal to the task?
I think they are praying to the wrong God, I would say. They should be praying to Allah Bia, because Bia started this war. Bia alone can tell with a stroke of pen, can say every soldier should return to their barracks, and that will be done. They should be telling their people or their citizens not to inscript to go to military barracks for conscription. They should not be recruited. They should deny to go fight the war. Those are things that are amply every family can do in La République du Cameroon. Their kids are being killed. They are coming and dying in their numbers. It's not something that is going to end today if they don't decide to end it. Because we are defending ourselves. If there are no opponents to face us, we'll go back to our villages and continue to do our fishing and all whatever the villagers were doing. As soon as these people can understand that it's not a winnable war, they are just doing it in what you call siasia, like we do say back home. It's something that they accepted, but they are not completely putting the pressure on those who really need to make those decisions to pull their kids off the battlefield. The kids of Amazonia are dying, the kids of La Republic are dying, only to give space to the old people who will also die not too long from now. They should be praying that these people should die. They should be praying that these people should be taken out of the stage by God. They are old enough, in their 90s. That's too long. The oldest people in the Bible were 70 years. So they've lived 24 years or more above that biblical age. And I think that's where their prayers should be geared to. And to their children not to continue to fight this war. They could turn back, they could surrender their weapons and run away. They could surrender their weapons to an Ambazonian and leave, at least leave, because most of us, they are dying, our kids are being killed on both sides. We are losing. We are both losers when it comes to this war. It wasn't supposed to be this. The Ambazonians and the English-speaking people of Ambazonia have been people who are based on argument, based on arranging these issues. We met, we discussed the AAC one. We've tendered up petitions for these things to change, and it hasn't been. And Cameroon thought they would kill us and fulfill the promise that Senator Weber said we were never a captive people. The only way they could take us was through a battle won. And they made that decision to actually win us in a battle. And it's not a winnable battle. And I'm glad it's dawning on them now that it's not a winnable battle, but they should be pushing their people, their leaders, to come to the realization too that our kids are not going to be dying, because their kids, the rulers, their kids are not in this battle. They are somewhere sitting in France, in Belgium, in Germany, in America, while the poor kids from poor families are dying in their dozens every single day. we have to start to put more pressure on people in La Republique to make those decisions. We don't have that ability to make those decisions in Amazonia. We cannot unilaterally surrender. We cannot unilaterally say, oh, we cannot fight again. We don't want to fight. Well, if you are asphyxiated, the only thing you have to do, you have to move that person's fingers around your neck or their foot around your neck. And that's what we are doing right now.
All right, thank you so much, SOS Zama. You said, I've listened to all of you said we don't really have the decision to make, and that is true. So what's the hope for Amazonian restoration forces and the home front in general? Because so many people from the interim government will say whether you go to war or not, the war will come to you as long as you are on home front. So what is the hope for the people on home front? Where is the war heading right now?
There's no choice that we have because the only choice that we have now is fight or die. Those are the two choices we have. We cannot leave our parents be shot at wantonly like they do. We cannot leave our kids to be raped wantonly like they do. We cannot leave our people to be fried like they burn those buildings and they put people in frying in oil, hot grease. We cannot let that happen. Those are all wickedness that most of the world will frown against. But when it comes to our community, it's judged a little bit different from the international community. And that's why I'm saying that we are only our own brother's keepers. There is no Salvation Army coming to save Ambazonians. We have to save ourselves. Despite the differences that we have in approaching this war, I'm saying that do your best where you are. Despite our differences, we can fix it when we reach Boya. Those differences can be rectified and brought, and everybody make justice brought to everybody. But today, we should be on the same side, fighting the same enemy. We cannot be splintered. We cannot keep a gaping hole in our fences or our defenses. Otherwise, the enemy is going to come in there. And we do see that with some of our elites. We do see that with some of citizens of Ambazonian descent who have decided to live in La Republique and do whatever they want to do. That is not a problem from us. Anybody can choose to live where they want to live. But when you become an enemy of our nation, you are an enemy. You are a public enemy. And if you feel and look like the enemy and you attack our families, we will attack you. We are just like bees. We are like African bees. We will chase you for the next 10 miles if we must when those things happen. And La Republique is feeling the pinch. Their people are feeling the pinch. And it's rather pathetic that we have to kill so many of our youth in sacrifice for the old people to stay in power. And what have they done for 60 years? Nothing. And we cannot live in a vacuum with nothing. We must create something for Ambazonia. Our kids have lived in that limbo for too many years. Graduates have gone through university. They've either fled out of the country. If you look at all over the world, there's a place in Vanuatu. You found an Ambazonian in Vanuatu. What the hell do you think a Ambazonian is going to get in Vanuatu? Nothing. It's just frustration. They're just trying to save their neck. We have kids who are dying in the deserts. They choose to die in the desert rather than dying at home because it's worse dying at home. So it's something we have to really think about it. What are they doing? What should we be doing to put pressure on these old people to leave the stage and to save these kids? It's not only our kids every day that I cry for Ambazonia, but I do cry for the kids who are from Nkolemenduka, they are from Sangmalima, they are from Betua, they are from Gedie, they are from Kutseri. All these kids are youth of Africans who are being killed for no good, for old people who have not contributed a single thing to the advancement of their country.
Thank you so much, SOS Zama. We do have a couple of more questions and reports that we would like you to react to, but we'll have to go through them first, and right after that we'll come back to you and get your 2 cents on it. So just hold on.
All right, and we have more sad stories here. Now, let's talk about Bali Nyonga local government area. Let's talk about the rape. Let's talk about the torture of the youth. Let's talk about what has become of the people in Bali Yonga local government area. Now, La Republic du Cameroon has been killing, raping, and torturing Southern Cameroonians. The Bali Yonga local government area vehemently condemns and abhors the war crimes committed by the Cameroonian military in Bali Yonga within the past months and years. Well, we have received at the level of the local government many horrific complaints from civilians within Bali Younger about the ongoing raping, killings, break-ins into homes, and the arrest of women and young girls as young as 14 years by the Cameroonian military stationed at the government school in Bali town. Eyewitnesses and corroborated statements from friends and families of these arrested have painted a horrific picture of what is unfolding, which involves the raping of some of the women and girls.
Well, it is reported that as many as 30 soldiers sometimes take turns in raping the girls and women arrested, as confirmed by the investigation team on the ground. There have been reports of screams, loud cries, and wailings coming from the government school campus, mostly at night times. We are told that girls as young as 14 and 15 years of age are amongst those rounded up and being raped and tortured. These actions by the Cameroonian military appear endorsed by the French Cameroon military hierarchy as a way of humiliating and dehumanizing the vulnerable population of Amazonia, especially the youths, into submission and a bondage mentality.
Well, this particular incident is not the first time that we have had such reports of such dehumanizing practices of systematic rape and torture of women and young girls in Bali. However, it appears to be of a wider and more alarming scale this time around. The unusually heavy presence of the Cameroonian military in Bali Younger, which is estimated to be in the thousands, has stirred all daily activities in Bali Younger as the population is now living in complete fear and panic about going about their daily businesses and activities.
Well, we continue to demand that the Cameroonian government withdraw all its military forces from Balionga, as their presence there is causing tremendous pain and suffering to the population.
I want to say the morning time I be see you, your face no be so. Now what happen with your face?
I mean, plant corn
For side
for backside houses.
for your compound. Then
So as for all one pass now, so they come for the.
okay, you are picking.
The part they ask me say, I say now you don't run past go backside. Father go backside. Don't other one the finish come home before they meet on. I sleep for under planting, like I sleep down. So my cousin say, come over there. I wake up, come here, come. I go for them. I take collars. I smell leave collars. I leave collars. And when I want to take corn, we put it back up like down. I say, leave the corn and the back. I come for veranda for park for that place for that. And then also now they see is I know sabi now they see the see my she don't go down. She don't go down. They beat me. They slap my face. They slap me. So once my sleep flat. I sleep flat. So I want to say, I move ground where I move from blue ground where I move. I move the blue ground. So the charge my pocket. What you do for me? Because I send them a key. You want them move all pocket to them. I send my key. Say some money. I say money. No, I don't get money. The other one take the foot, mash my face. Now I start bleed. Even slap the first slap me and I bleed. All my mop. Now blood even stop my mop.
Jay, your nose almost see something, mommy.
Blood stick most of my nose.
Move your hand. Jay, have all myself. Jay, your face for up. That means that blood come out of your nose.
No blood.
That means the nakusute you bleed. I share. No worry. God go pay.
Well, there you have it, a mother explaining how much she was tortured by these terrorist forces.
Okay, probably before we continue, let's get Sylvester Zama's thought. I mean, this is quite
Definitely,
painful. Yes,
definitely.
this is quite painful. Sylvester Zama, please, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
Mm.
It's painful.
That's
It's
just one
painful to
out of the
see.
numerous.
Yeah, it's really painful to see what's going on, and it makes me tears up. And this is what we go through every single day. And people have the audacity to say, well, we looked for this. None of this did we find. We started no war. We committed no crimes. But everything is going on in this situation where these people are raping our kids, raping our mothers, raping our grandparents. Just looking at it, nobody's willing to do anything. That's why some people don't sleep, because they have to work. They have to work to fund this war. Some people do what they have to do. I'm just telling people, look at these videos, watch what is going on, listen to the complaints, and just put yourself in those situations. These are some of the kind of situations that brought America to fight in Iraq. These are the situations that had the British to fight, like the Jenkins War, because the Spanish had cut somebody's ear, a sailor's ear. We have families that are killed on a daily basis, and it doesn't even bring it to world attention. It doesn't even bring it to some of our people. Some of our people have just developed some amnesia when it comes to this war. So we cannot give up ourselves. We cannot give up ourselves for this banality. We cannot give us our fight. We have to fight for dignity. We have to fight for survival. And daily, these reports come in. Daily, these killings come in. And still yet, some of our people are not willing to submit to this war. They are not willing to provide for this war. They are not willing to provide for the safety of their own families back home. It's pitiful. We cannot count on the international community. We are not Europeans. We are not Caucasians. And it's on us. It's certain that other African countries, nobody's looking to what to do. We are a small population, yes, but we have a right to exist too. We are larger than a lot of European countries. We are larger than Vanuatu. We are larger than Liechtenstein. We are larger than Luxembourg. We are larger than Monaco. And all these things are being done, and nobody says a thing about it. We have to reestablish our ability to engage the international community to put a stop to this war. If Biya is not willing to do it, let them bring pressure to bear on the La République du Cameroun, and let the Muslims, they want to pray, let them pray. Let these people evacuate the stage so that we can get some real people where we can sit down and talk on the modalities, how we have to separate. Because there is no going back to this. A bad marriage is a bad marriage. No matter how much counseling you go through a bad marriage, it always ends up in a bad way. Either it becomes an abusive marriage, then it becomes a murderous marriage. We have gone through all those stages. There is no going back. We've crossed the Rubicon, and there's no going back to this status quo. For those people who like Agwabala and Monzo and all who are thinking that we can go back to the same status quo, to the same subservient status that we've had for the last 61 years, I would say we'll better be honorable dying than to live in such a situation. This is not what our parents were born to receive from La République. We've done everything that we can do to maintain a cordial relationship. We've done for all the war, that's all the time that this thing has happened. There's not been a single Francophone that's been killed in our part of the country. Not a single person who's been killed in Ambazonia who's of Francophone descent. That shows how disciplined, despite all the horrendous stuff that they do to our people have still maintained that a citizen from La République is innocent, except they become a participant in this war by giving them intelligence, by becoming a counter-terrorist person in our community. And even at that point, we've not even had one, not a single one. And I think that's something that people should applaud our character as Anglo-Saxons and our ability as Ambazonians to differentiate between an enemy and a friend. And the citizens of La République are our friends, but not necessarily our enemy. It depends what role they play in this relationship when it comes to this war. But we are going to fight whoever pretends it's an enemy to Ambazonia. We will do everything that we have to do. But as I said, we are never going to revert to a situation of servitude. We're not going to revert to a situation of second-class citizens in Ambazonia. Those days are gone. And those people who are thinking that it can be negotiated as such, well, you will have to sell a lot more people for that. Can you get me? I might have lost contact with you guys in the studio.
Conflict in Anglophone Cameroon rumbles on. In just the last few days, there have been reports of separatist fighters and workers for a state-owned company being killed and young men arbitrarily arrested, leading to protest. The war broke out over 5 years ago, with Anglophones saying they'd been marginalised by the French-speaking elite, which dominates Cameroonian politics. There's also dismay over the apparent collapse of a potential path to peace. Last month, Canada said it would be mediating between Cameroon's government and several Anglophone movements, only for Yaoundé to reject this shortly afterwards. Well, Samuel Ikomiseko is a major figure among the separatists. He sees himself as the leader of the internationally unrecognised Ambazonia state, though in the divided and divisive world of separatist politics, this is rejected by others. I asked him what the prospects for peace are in the Anglophone regions of Cameroon.
We cannot talk of peace unless the aggressor, in this case, the Republic of Cameroon, is ready to dialogue with us. They have locked themselves in a logic of war, in a military option, and they believe that they can kill their way to normalcy. So I cannot really answer that question. If they are not ready to come to the table with the mediation of the international community, then they are not. They're just buying time to continue killing their way to a possible normalcy that is impossible.
Should that dialogue come mediated by Canada, as Canada itself has suggested, Yaoundé seems to be rejecting that possibility?
You know, the mediator cannot self-elect. The parties involved in the conflict should elect a mediator. They should endorse a mediator to be one. Apparently, the way things have turned out, Cameroon is saying that they did not give Canada the mandate to mediate. We did not give them either. So we did not participate in any shape or form in that gathering because Cameroon, that is fighting and killing our people, was absent. So we said, okay, when it becomes serious enough that Cameroon decides to send a representative of that government that is killing our people and somebody to head that delegation that can report back to their president, then we will be part of such an initiative. Otherwise, that was coming just 2 weeks after they declined the offer of the Swiss, the opportunity given by the Swiss, by the international community, that they pretended for 2 years to be in favor of, that they endorsed in the first place, the Swiss-led process. 2 weeks after they withdrew, then this charade was created in Canada. And Canada was not patient enough, did not follow the procedure, did not learn from the Swiss to have insisted that certain conditions be met by Cameroon to prove that they are serious.
All right, sincerest apologies for that break in transmission. Before we were rudely interrupted, we had SOS for Special Operations and Self-Defense, SOS Zama in the studio, and he was reacting to that sad incident in Bali Nyonga. I mean, if you watch that video, I'm sure that you feel as bad as we all feel at this moment. SOS Zama, sincerest apologies for that break in transmission. Please, you may go ahead.
I'm saying that we should not turn our eyes and or stop to broadcast images as horrendous as they are, because these are the realities that our people face on a daily basis. These are the realities where kids cannot go to sleep. They come in the night and they pick them up, they execute them and dump them in streets all over the country. We as a people should not look away because the images are so horrendous. No, we have to look at it and see the realities that some of us in this fight or some people in our community are not looking at it. Because for those of our citizens who think that they want to fight for a federation, we are not looking at any federation with La République. It's gone through a bad stage. As I was saying earlier, this marriage, or in any marriage, a bad marriage is always going to be a bad marriage. There's no fixing of a bad marriage. Even though there may be several sessions of counseling, psychotherapy, and family counseling, it never gets well. A bad marriage always ends badly. We've gone through all the stages of abuse. We've gone through the stages of killings. There is nothing in this relationship that we really need to do with La Republic. We've never had any developmental indices that has gone well in Ambazonia. There's never been anything that has really gotten. Every industry that we've had in Ambazonia was destroyed or deliberately or maliciously done so that we depend on La Republic. So our people have gone through this a lot. We've seen baby Mata killed. We've seen baby doused in hot boiling oil. We've seen people roasted in their houses. We've seen mothers killed in hospital settings. We've seen soldiers or people who've been shot, pulled out of the hospital and summarily executed. The atrocities are just extensive. One of the reasons why the United States went to war in Iraq is the stories that the women talked about, kids being pulled out of the incubators and left to die. That turned a lot of spirits in America. That was barbaric. That was horrible for Saddam Hussein to have done that. They are doing the same thing in Ambazonia, but yet it's not striking anything in the international media. But at the end of the day, I keep telling Ambazonians, we cannot wait for a Salvation Army to come to save Ambazonia. The Salvation Army, our parents, the return on investment that our parents send us abroad is to help them. And this is the moment. There is no other time where we can really do anything for our people. This is the time. Your call for duty is now. The clarion call has been there. We've crossed the Rubicon. There is no going back. We cannot go back to this hellhole called La République du Cameroon. It's not something that we will encourage. It's not something that we can accept. We've had these people with their fingers on our throats, with their foot on our throats. All we need is fresh air, and we have to get rid of that food. And that food is becoming more and more heavy by the day. We must react, and we must react swiftly.
All right, thank you so much, SOS. In regards to that, well, Ambazonians, people on the home front, while they're waiting for this Ambazonia to get its recognition and have its actual statehood, while we're waiting for that, while Ambazonians on the home front are waiting for that. Things like this dehumanization keeps happening on a daily basis. We've heard reports of girls, young girls, teenagers being molested, raped, even in schools, and this violations, this dehumanization continues. What is your advice to these women, these young girls, these people in Bali, Nyonga? What do you see? What can they do while we wait for Ambazonian to gain its statehood?
We are looking at uniformity in action. We have to act like a school of fish. We have to fight in one direction. There cannot be splintering of the community. We cannot say we are supporting this group or we are supporting that group. And because at the end of the day, it doesn't help us, but the enemy. We have to call on the community in Bali Kumbat and all over in Bali Nyonga and everywhere in Ambazonia that the community is one. Everything that is coming from our defense forces should be adhered to. The enemy is always looking for all those weak spots where there are differences, and they'll come in there. And our biggest problem is the elite from our area, from Ambazonia, who are sitting in Yaoundé and dictating and telling where to go kill our citizens. It's rather pathetic, but those are the kind of people we are dealing with. We are telling our Muslim brothers to pray for these people's demise, because these are the people who are a stumbling block to development, a stumbling block to peace in this country. We want peace. We've never sought this war. We've never done anything to merit such a treatment. And we are not going to sit and just expect them to come and kill us and make it an accepted principle that they can just come and pick our kids in our houses and go rape them and send them back. There's a lot of diseases going on now, and these kids is not something that our community is going to deal with. I don't know if you don't want to ask my opinion what needs to be done, but I can say we must act as a single unit and defend and fight against the enemy as much as we can, the best way we can, and leave the rest to God and to our people who don't want to do this fight. Fighting is ugly, and war is not for sissies. It happens. People will die. They are gruesome. Before, when I was growing up, when you see a dog in a street corner, you cut grass and throw in there. By the next hour or two, the veterinary people came and picked up the dog. It's sad that today we are seeing corpses lying all over the city, and people are just skipping around and going, and it's just like it's a normal thing now. It shouldn't be. Once we become desensitized, it's a very bad sign in society when we become desensitized to death. Human life is sacred, and taking out somebody's life, it's only when you must be at your own risk of your own life. If you are defending yourself, I say yes, and that's what exactly we are doing, and we will do most of what we have to do and compelled to do to be able to take that next gulp of air. We are really need to breathe, and we are asking our citizens to survive and support our families back home, and to take these people's big feet off their necks. And we can't continue having these kids see this kind of tragedy, raped, torn. There were situations where some kids were sodomized with a beer bottle. How can we sleep in our beds comfortably every day and see this happen?
All right, SOS Zama, it's been a sad evening, especially with that terrible report there. But all of this boils down to equipping the Ambazonian Restoration Forces. Now, before the next draft, what would you advise, which is also going to be your closing remarks, what would you advise that all Ambazonians, both in the home front and in diaspora, do? Now, this would be your parting words as well.
La Republique has been very hesitant to come to the table because they think they are dividing us. They think we are divided. They think it's a fringe few in Amazonia that's fighting them. The majority wants something else. That's the picture they are showing. That's the image they want to portray out there. But I'm saying that image doesn't really jive, because if it was, they will not be doing the kind of atrocities that they are doing to our people. We are asking, and I'm pleading with a lot of our citizens to take the time, not shy away from all these images back home. Watch it, and if you do not have a post-traumatic stress disorder, just watching these videos from back home, then you have a very good heart or a tough heart. But as I say, it's always difficult to see all these things and see the fact that our people know that these things are going on, and they stay mute, and they don't want to contribute anything. They don't want to say nothing, and because they are benefiting one way or the other. That's life. The poor man's life is useless. Those who are affluent can send their children to Europe. They can send their children abroad. They can send them to the best school and provide security for them. Our kids who are in the villages they are wantonly killed, they are wantonly raped, and nobody is saying anything about it. But as I said, the brave few who are funding this fight, I pray you continue doing that. I pray you feel you have a healthy life to continue supporting the war until we reach Buea. Until we reach Buea, we will never give up this fight. We'll reach Buea eventually. It's not a matter of if, but it's a matter of when. And when is that? They say, it's how long is it? I say, not too long. And that's what we'll have to do. We'll have to fight to be able to make this thing so that our people can see some light at the end of the tunnel. Because for the last 7 years, or I can say for the last 135 years, we've been under some form of domination from foreigners, be it from the Germans, be it from the Nigerians, be it from the British, and now the La Republique people. It's been a heck of 135 years that our people in Amazonia have gone through. And I want people to be able to understand the enormity of all this. It's the continuous stress. That's why a lot of our citizens leave, because they can't take it. But it's sadly so. A lot of them die in the desert. A lot of them die in high seas. A lot of them die in the bushes in Panama. And it's pitiful.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for accepting our invites, for being part of the show this evening. Thank you so much. I know that before the next draft, we'll definitely see you as well. All right, and we'll move on with the rest of the news right after the break. Well, you're welcome back. One-time reported disciplined worker of the Colonial Republic de Cameroon elections body with the French acronym ELECAM. His grave has been opened by illegal human bone hunter. The question is, what are the bones used for? Information gotten by UNDAUNTED says that the ghost of Mr. Euphela Gilbert is haunting some people. The reason why the hands of the deceased are needed to remove his ghost from the land of the living.
A young man suspected of digging up the grave of late Mr. Euphela Gilbert, who before his death was the Colonial District Head of Elections, Cameroons, also known as Elicam, has been arrested by La République du Cameroon's forces of law and order. This was after he successfully dug up the grave of late Euphela Gilbert at the All Saint Parish Bayele Nkwane Cemetery over the weekend and harvested one of his hands. A Colonial Elecam staff whose name we are keeping for security reasons confirmed so to the tomb was actually that of his colleague.
Well, he narrated to us what he said was a version of the story he got. Now, in his word, he said it would appear that the act was committed in the night of Friday, breaking Saturday. The guy, from what we are getting, was apprehended Saturday morning on his way to meet his client somewhere around Old Town. He confessed and led La Republique de Cameroon security forces to the graveyard Saturday morning. Many have described his action as denying the Mr. Youssef eternal rest after he was assassinated and his car taken away.
Well, if someone dies and is buried, but someone goes there to exhume his body for whatever reason, that is denying the departed eternal rest, said Sixtus, a witness familiar with the story. Mr. Euphela Gilbert was one of the two in-house slaves Elecam officials killed in less than 24 hours. Euphela was killed by gunmen on Tuesday, January 17, 2023. A report we brought to you at about 8 p.m. around his residence at the Foncha neighborhood in Bamenda.
While his car was taken away and later abandoned along the Bamenda Santa Road, it is still not clear what pushed the young man to exhume the remains of the dead man. He's currently helping La Republique de Cameroon security forces in their investigations.
Well, in Africa, still on the most recent sub-Saharan conflict, the one in Sudan, to which so far nearly 200 people have been killed in Sudan following 3 days of violence between its army and a powerful paramilitary force, raising fears of a protracted civil war that could destabilize the wider region. Nearly 1,800 have been injured, and the United Nations said, adding that fighting has been, quote, almost uninterrupted. Airstrikes, gunfires, and artillery have rocked the capital of Khartoum in intense fighting, but the violence is spreading to other areas too. Secretary of State Antony Blinken spoke with the warring generals Monday, calling for a ceasefire so that aid could be delivered and international communities could be secured, the State Department said.
Well, running briefly through what is happening in Sudan, the crisis began on Saturday with clashes between the Sudanese armed forces and the paramilitary rapid support forces, the RSF. This happened after months of rising tensions over a 10-year power sharing agreement amid an attempted transition to sea following a military coup. The fighting, which some experts described as the worst in the history of the country, has since intensified and the situation on the ground remains volatile. Water and electricity cuts have been reported, and widespread violence has made it impossible for the wounded to reach hospitals. Well, this was reported by the Washington Post.
The crisis has forced the United Nations to temporarily halt much of its operations. Spokesperson Stefan Dujarric said 1/3 of Sudan's 46 million population is acutely food insecure, the World Food Programme has said. Gerrit Kurz, a researcher specializing in sub-Saharan Africa at the German Institute for International and Security Affairs, has said it was too early to know how long the fighting will go on for. For now, he says there is unlikely to be a reliable truce until one of the parties is in firm control of key state and military institutions in Khartoum, adding that an active armed conflict could last for a long time.
Well, the recent fighting is a power struggle playing out between two groups that were once allied and, in theory, supposed to merge. Sudan, coming from a de jure multi-party system of government, the military, led by the country's president, General Abdel Fattah el-Burhan, is clashing with the paramilitary group RSF, which is led by the country's vice president, General Mohammed Haddam Dagalo, who is widely known by his nickname, Hamidi.
Well, the president and vice president came to power together in the aftermath of former President Omar al-Bashir's ouster following civilian protests. But tensions have risen in recent weeks because of disagreements about, among other things, an agreement to integrate the RSF into the military. With an air force and experience fighting in urban areas, the military is better positioned over the RSF, experts say, but the RSF is more than just a militia. It has long-standing roots in Sudan, with a history that includes accusation of rapes and pillaging of villages in the western Darfur region since the 2000s. The group is heavily armed and is estimated to have about 100,000 members.
Well, an interesting aspect to look at when it comes to this conflict is Sudan's history with coups and political conflicts, civil war, coups, and attempted takeovers of governments have contributed to years of political instability in Sudan. The most recent coup was in 2021. It saw the military depose the civilian prime minister who was heading a joint civilian-military transitional government that had been formed after the ouster of Bashir after months of pro-democracy protests. His 30-year rule ended in 2019 when the military ousted him following the popular civilian uprising.
Well, in 1989, Bashir had come to power leading a coup against the elected government of Prime Minister Sadiq Mahdi. Sudan has also endured civil wars, and after two protracted conflicts, much of southern Sudan became independent to form a new nation in 2011. So that's about it on the need-to-knows of this uprising war in Sudan.
Well, the interesting thing, however, is how most wars are usually centered around power tussle. Like La République du Cameroon not wanting the Southern Cameroonians, Ambazonian, to have its recognition as an independent state. Why? It's just due to all the resources and wealth it will lose from Ambazonia.
Wealth is scared to lose that already has 50% of it going to France for reasons we cannot understand. Wars rising from Africa amidst the unending speculations of Russia, China, and the US being in battle to win over Africa makes us wonder if there's more than meets the eye to these wars. Could there be strings tied to colonialism with these wars?
Now, because the wars in Africa are seemingly unending, and we see that daily. Now, let's take this example. While France is losing her grip on Africa, Russia forming military alliances with African nations and America seeking to establish relationships in different parts of Africa. Well, we can't help but wonder if all be of good faith or subtle avenue of exploitation. All right, amidst the talk of the BRICS nations' development of an alternative currency, U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen has stated that the sanctions on countries like the Russia could hurt the U.S. dollars. Moreover, international trade has been adamant in its pursuit of an alternative standard currency to the greenback. The BRICS nations have been outspoken in pursuing a new international trade currency. Conversely, Yellen told the CNN that economic sanctions on countries like Russia would only add to the threat of the US dollar's prominence.
Well, the BRICS nations, composed of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, have undoubtedly grown in their importance globally, undoubtedly observed in the recent collectives in the G7 nations in GDP PPP. Moreover, they have been outspoken in their pursuit of creating an alternative currency to eliminate the dominance of American currency. Now, amidst the plan made by the BRICS nation, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen has spoken on sanctions ultimately hurting the dominance of the US dollar. Specifically, Yellen spoke to CNN to discuss those sanctions and the adverse effect they could have on the greenback's international relevance.
Now, in the same interview, she says there is a risk when we use financial sanctions that are linked to the role of the dollar, that over time it could undermine the hegemony of the dollar. Yellen said that in an interview. Now, she noted that the US uses the dollar as a tool judiciously. Now, that's what she said in the same interview. Now, it is a very effective tool, of course. It does create a desire on the part of China, of Russia, of Iran, to find an alternative. Yellen remarked still, the growing voice against the US dollar's dominance is not limited to those three
Specifically,
countries.
Last week saw Brazil President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva call for countries to develop their own currencies for international trade, as a result, decreasing reliance on the US dollars.
And in sports, Real Madrid midfielder Federico Valverde could face a 12-game ban for punching Villarreal star Alex Baena after their La Liga clash at the State of the Month. Valverde looked set to escape a ban, as neither the Villarreal player nor the club have reported the incident to the Spanish Football Federation despite pressing charges.
Well, the Sacramento Kings defeated defending champions, the Golden State Warriors, 114-106 to take a 2-game lead in the NBA Western Conference playoffs. It is the first time the Warriors have suffered back-to-back playoff losses since the 2019 NBA Final, and of course, that is on basketball. We'll have Gabellison tell us more.
Latest world sports, football. Valverde could still face a 12-game ban for punching Villarreal's Alex Baena. Real Madrid midfielder Federico Valverde could still face a 12-game ban for punching Villarreal star Alex Baena after their La Liga clash at the start of the month. Valverde looked set to escape a ban, as neither the Villarreal player nor the club have reported the incident to the Spanish Football Federation, despite pressing charges. However, according to The Athletic, the Spanish FA's competition committee, who are an independent disciplinary body, will investigate the matter. Valverde and Baena will be interviewed by the Spanish FA's competition committee and asked to recall the events that took place after Real's 3-2 defeat by Villarreal. If found guilty, Valverde will serve a domestic ban, which could span anywhere from 4 games to a maximum of 12 games. However, there is still a possibility that Real Madrid Uruguay international could escape a ban despite lashing out on Baena on April 8. A judge may feel they lack the jurisdiction required to suspend Valverde, as the incident did not take place during the game itself. The incident in question is said to have taken place in the car park after Real Madrid's 3-2 loss to Villarreal on April 8. Valverde reportedly punched Baena after growing frustrated with some of the comments the 21-year-old had been making. ESPN claimed Baena said to Valverde, "Cry, because your child won't be born," in a previous Copa del Rey game. Baena's alleged comments came after Valverde's partner Mina Bonino believed she had lost a child during pregnancy, and further tests revealed the baby was healthy. Valverde went on to accuse Baena of making new comments of a similar nature during Real Madrid's La Liga clash with Villarreal earlier this month. The Uruguay international confirmed to Marca he did not let his aggression get the better of him in the car park after the game. However, he insisted it was warranted. Baena had denied reports claiming he made comments about Valverde's family and his unborn child, claiming such allegations are totally false. He took to social media after the game to say very happy with the impressive victory for the team on a stage like the Santiago Bernabeu, but at the same time very sad about the aggression I suffered after the match. Baena went on to add, I am surprised by what is being said about my person. It is totally false that I said comments about Valverde's family. Baena also released a statement claiming his family had been subjected to death threats following the controversy, adding that he would let the police investigate. Meanwhile, Villarreal issued the following statement on April 9th. Villarreal central forward player Alex Baena was assaulted last night on his way to the team bus after the match against Real Madrid at the Santiago Bernabeu Stadium. Once again, Villarreal rejects any act of violence and firmly believes in the version of each player and will support him throughout this process. American football. Quarterback Jalen Hurts signs record-breaking 5-year extension with Philadelphia Eagles, reportedly highest-paid player in NFL history. The Philadelphia Eagles and quarterback Jalen Hurts have agreed to a 5-year extension of the star's contract, the NFL team announced Monday. According to reports, the extension is worth $255 million, making Hurts the highest-paid player in league history. The contract keeps Hurts with the franchise through 2028. ESPN's Adam Schefter and Ian Rapoport of the NFL Network both tweeted the news, noting more than $179 million of the contract is guaranteed. The deal was negotiated by Nico Lean of Clunch Sports Group, the same agency that represents National Basketball Association NBA star LeBron James. Earlier this year, Lean became the first black woman agent to represent an NFL quarterback in the Super Bowl. CNN reached out to Clutch to confirm the numbers, but did not immediately receive a response. Rapoport also noted the deal contains a no-trade clause, reportedly the first in Eagles history. The no-trade clause means that the team is unable to trade the 24-year-old without the written permission of both the player and his agent. Drafted by Eagles with the 53rd overall pick of the 2020 NFL Draft, Hurts led Philadelphia to the 2023 Super Bowl, falling short against the Kansas City Chiefs in Arizona in February. He finished second in NFL Most Valuable Player voting for the 2023 season, behind Chiefs play caller Patrick Mahomes. Hurts spent 3 years at the University of Alabama, leading the Crimson Tide to consecutive college football national championship games in 2017 and 2018. He spent his last year of college at the University of Oklahoma after a transfer. Basketball. NBA playoffs. Sacramento Kings beat Golden State Warriors to take 2-game lead. The Sacramento Kings defeated defending champions, the Golden State Warriors, 114-106 to take a 2-game lead in the NBA Western Conference playoffs. It is the first time the Warriors have suffered back-to-back playoff losses since the 2019 NBA Finals. The Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis each scored 24 points for the Kings at the Golden One Center in Sacramento. The game got heated when Warriors forward Draymond Green was ejected after stamping on the chest of Sabonis. The pair became entangled until the Golden State basket, with Sabonis hitting the floor after a bomb from Klay Thompson. As Green attempted to run down the court, his foot landed on his opponent's chest, which resulted in a flagrant foul 2 and immediate ejection. "I've got to land my foot somewhere," Green told TNT Television. "I can only step so far when I'm pulling my leg away. It is what it is." Sabonis added, "We were both fighting for the rebound. We fell on each other. Stuff happens. It's basketball. We've got to move on to the next play." The 7-match series heads to San Francisco for Game 3 on Thursday. In Monday's other playoff game, the Philadelphia 76ers took a 2-0 lead in the Eastern Conference Series by beating the Brooklyn Nets 96-84. Trailing by 10 points in the second quarter, the Sixers overcame a slow start and outscored Brooklyn 24-14 in the third, before wrapping up victory as Tyrese Maxey scored 33 points at Philadelphia's Wells Fargo Center. The series moves to Brooklyn with Game 3 taking place on Thursday. Gab Ellison reporting from UNDAUNTED, ABC Amba News.
All right, thank you so much, Gab Ellison, for that sports report. And with that particular report, we've come to the end of Undaunted tonight. But before we go, let's take a look at our major stories for tonight.
And Undaunted tonight, we brought to you Bali Nyonga local government area reporting records of rapes and torture of youths by the Cameroonian La République du Cameroon military, and also the remains of a killed colonial agent exhumed, and we wondered why. And also having lost so many soldiers in Ambazonia War of Independence, La République du Cameroon Muslim begin week of prayers for peace.
All right, and in Africa, we looked at the in-depth of the most recent conflict in sub-Saharan Africa. We also talked about the BRICS as they will be having their summit in August and their new currency they will be introducing in sports. We told you that the Verde could still face a 12-game plan ban for punching Villarreal's Alex Bainer. And that was it for tonight on Daunted, bringing to the news on Church Stories. On behalf of Michael and Kirsten Smart and the entire Undaunted crew, we say thank you for tuning in.
We'll leave you with ABC Amba TV images. Good night, and God bless you.